Given that it's NFL training camp season, that means fights are going to break out and have started to break out. If you remember last season, first of all, actually, let me go back 50 years. Fights at training camp has been happening every single year. The invention of the cell phone and a camera on your phone has enabled us to finally see these fights. You can probably find some from even 10 years ago if you wanted to. But last year's groundbreaking one was Josh Norman, Cam Newton, right? Two superstar, perennial all-stars or all-pro NFL players, right? I shouldn't say perennial, but Cam Newton is. Josh Norman probably is, given his stint now with the Redskins, right, Dan? Yeah, Redskins. That was a big one, and all the hype around that, all the rapid reaction, the Panthers look like a train wreck. Quarterback get into a fight. They did just fine last year, okay? Because fights in training camps are going to happen because you have a bunch of wild up, super strong, superhuman athletes running into each other at full contact speed. So they fight. Of course, there's a big hit, maybe a hit that shouldn't have happened because of a cornerback takes out a wide receiver, maybe he wasn't looking, you're supposed to be teammates, and then they all huddle around each other. Francis, I'm going to have you read 2 Darrelle Revis quotes because the big perennial fight of the year so far, Darrelle Revis and Brandon Marshall. Not much video has surfaced. Actually, no video at all has surfaced from the fight. But allegedly, haymakers were thrown. At least one haymaker was thrown. But this is Darrelle Revis' quote because he says there's no beef. Have a look.
It's just football, man. It's nothing more, Revis said on Saturday via ESPN.com. You might hit somebody in the head. You might get poked in the eye. You might get your foot stepped on. It's all football. It's all involved. It's a very physical sport. Revis also added that training camp fights can actually be a good thing.
Continues.
Well, 2 very competitive guys, and this hasn't been the first time of us getting into it, Revis said. We're both physical players, and we like to compete, and I think this is good. This is good for us to compete the way we did. Brandon's not going to stop competing the way he competes, and I'm not going to stop competing the way I compete.
Yeah.
All right, so I understand it's probably going to be more prominent in American football because it's a lot more physical, but having been in training camps in the past, both in Scotland and here, this is perfectly normal. It's what happens when you check in for season win 1. You're excited to be back if you've been off of a long season, and sometimes you are not as rational as you think when you're that excited. But 2 is you're trying to stake a claim. Not everyone comes in with that kind of established role where you're like, all right, unless I royally fuck up, I'm going to play. Not everyone's in that same boat. People are out there to make themselves known to the coaches and show that they've got the passion, they've got the drive, and they've got the enthusiasm to go and play next season. So therefore, they're putting themselves out there. They're going into tackles hard. They're trying to be passionate. They're trying to showcase that they are for the position when it comes to next season, staking your claim. And at times, that often boils over. Players might not react as well to that. Other players might try to outdo their fellow teammates, and it all comes together for one major thing, is they're out there to play the sport and showcase that they are good at playing the sport, good enough to start. Everyone's fighting for a place when it comes to preseason, no matter what sport it is. As I mentioned, American football just so happens to be more physical than most other sports, but fights have happened for preseason in every sport. It's not uncommon, and it is healthy at times. You don't want everyone just going in there and brawling. Sometimes you'd rather your teammates didn't fight. But there's been plenty of instances in the past where people come together and you have to split them up.
There's a borderline between stupid and normal because, again, this is going to happen. What annoys me about it is those who look for other storylines.
That they don't like each other, they don't have chemistry, blah, blah,
exactly.
blah.
I don't need any more proof than Josh Norman and Cam Newton from last year. Just one look back a year ago, and then that team was undefeated for the first, 8, 9, 10 weeks of the season. Obviously, there was no beef.
Yeah.
But people would want to find a beef because the sad part is that a lot of media wants Darrelle Revis and someone like Brandon Marshall to hate each other. They want guys like Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant to hate each other. They want beef. It's scandalous. Scandalous. It's a scandalous type of story.
Captures the views.
Salacious type of story. It captures the eye. I want to get to what Brandon Marshall said on the fight, too. There was an interview with him about 45 seconds long. Have a look on that one as well.
Brandon, what compelled you to take a swing at Darrelle?
Early in one-on-ones, we had a couple reps. We got really competitive, and I beat him 2 times in a row, and then on the third one, he swung and hit me in the face. And ever since then, you know, got really competitive. So that came back up in that moment, and just told him, don't ever put your hands in my face again like that. And kind of baited me to do it, and I did it. So kind of went too far, but you know, there's a thin line between football and being a man. So you know, that's what it was.
That was like a rapid reaction to
I
what
didn't like
happened
that.
at training camp.
I don't think he should have even answered it.
Good
Because
question.
they're on the same team. Like, they're going for the same goal next year. I would
yeah.
have just went, no comment. Things happen in training.
By the way, keep in mind they're never gonna be on the same field at the same time.
But even that, you know, still like you don't want to show any sort of weakness in your camp, even if there is conflicts. Like it just Brandon Marshall needs to come out there, I think, and be like, you know, things happen. We get passionate. We were competitive going against each other. There's going to be guys that are going to come up against Brandon Marshall that are going to do the same thing as what Revis has did through the season. They're going to try and put his hands in his face, and if he reacts like that, he's out the game.
Yeah,
if he reacts like that, he gets a suspension.
Keep in mind, Darrell Revis is one of the shutdown corners in the league.
Exactly, and that's why
in general,
at times it's good to have a player like that.
there's an island named after him.
Yeah, and there's things where I don't care if I'm bringing up a soccer reference because Cristiano Ronaldo mentioned that in his first year at Manchester United, Gary Neville kicked the living shit out of him for at least 3 or 4 months. Just kicked him. And you know what they said to him at the end? They says, if you can take that from Gary Neville and you can beat him one-on-one, you're going to beat anyone else in the league. You're going to destroy everyone you play against, because if you can take that from a teammate in that scenario, you can go forth and overcome it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. All right, so Chad Johnson also agrees. Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco, ex-NFL wide receiver, stuntman in a way, to his tweets. Just hearing about the Marshall Revis altercation, they're definitely going to have a good season. You have to be a player to understand. Cam Newton, Josh Dormer got into a similar altercation in training camp last year. It sets the tone and precedent despite it being frowned upon. Thank you. PC Culture, take a seat with the fighting in the NFL training camp. Chad Johnson nailing it on the head. All right, so to some other fights that are of less prominent note, but just shows that NFL training camp fights happen all the time. I'm going to show you one from the Bears, that's first, and the second video you'll see is one from the Falcons training camps. So again, first of all, the big thing with these fights that it's just such a major headline. Fight, fight, fight. These fights are so crappy to watch.
I couldn't even see nothing. I mean, the last one, it looked like a very tough tackle. And that's
I'd rather watch Pacquiao Mayweather too
Not
than
as much a
Falcons
fight.
Bears training camp fights.
And then that is a point that I think I didn't touch on as much, which has to be brought up, is that at times, yeah, there is going to be instances where players maybe take it too far and they risk the injury of their opponent. Maybe it's not full contact, because I know there's times where they don't have full contact and they're just running plays to try and get their structure down, their system, and someone goes in and just bulldozes another player over, then that might not be considered the right thing to do in your teammate. But again, it's all about understanding that everyone's there for the same goal, which happens to be to win.
Also, do you know how difficult it is to get 52, 60, 65 guys on the same page?
You're all riled up and probably testosterone levels through the roof. It's not, it will take a strong group of people to try and maintain that level of testosterone.
That's why every team should implement a team haka. Should watching those. There's been a bunch of them at weddings recently. In sports,
they're the best.
Sports
I love
networks are running them. Lastly, Jay Cutler, America's favorite quarterback, Chicago Bears quarterback, had this to say about his fights, not his fights, but the Bears fights in training camp. Now we're getting to the point where we're just kind of being a dumb team. So we got to find that fine line of when we're being tough and when we're being dumb. I think we're right there on that edge, so now we kind of have to start dialing it back. Ready for games. Nothing wrong with that statement, just Cutler's opinion on training camp action. I think he's right on this one. There is a line of where it's dumb and where it's normal. I agree with Jay Cutler on that note, just because there's a point where it's dumb and you also have to prepare for the games that are coming up, the games that are going to start to matter, the regular season. However, this is so routinely normal, and Chad Johnson, I think, nailed it. It's frowned upon, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. That doesn't mean you should get outwardly angry if it does.
But so I think he's right in his statement, but do you think he's right in stating that to the media?
No, I mean, well,
like that exact quote to his teammates, I would think that's a great quote.
fine.
You stand up and you're like, boys, we're being dumb.
It depends. I think what we don't give enough respect to athletes for is the fact that these guys get asked the same questions, over and over and over and over again. And after a while, sometimes you might just want to give an answer so they stop asking.
Yeah.
Because once you give that one answer, you can say, check, I just answered that to CBS Sports. Just check CBS Sports. No comment, I already answered that. No comment, I already answered that. I think Brandon Marshall shouldn't have gotten into detail of what happened. I think you say no comment, it's my own practice.
Or even that, yeah, we got into it. And
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah, I'm just, take a leaf out of Mal Shones. But
just remember, keep in mind, 95%, I think that's a fair number of reporters' questions to athletes are dumb and unnewsworthy.
Very true.
Not Francis Maxwell's questions to Claudio Ranieri?
For Claudio Ranieri. Maybe I'll hit up an NFL press conference and just throw out some curveballs.
Oh, I just want to throw you in front of Greg Popovich for 5 minutes.
I would love, and the same thing, by the way, I said that about being at the press conference. I talked to Jacory, he was there with me, and I was like, some of the questions I was hearing in that press conference, I understand now why Popovich gives
Right, you
stupid
do, because
answers.
they ask.
But I don't think
Stupid
it's
questions
so hard.
deserve stupid answers.
Yeah.
It's very, very true.
I think there's something unique about the fact that we've been on camera for 2 years. I'm not saying I'm more established than these reporters that ask great questions nonstop, but there's something unique about being on camera and reporting on stupid stories that give you the kind of the outside view to go in and you're like, I don't want to ask a stupid question because then I'll need to probably report on my stupid question being asked to someone later on in time because they're like, some idiot reporter asked Popovich what he likes to feed his players before games.
That's my favorite thing is when they do. All right, and your question, how you doing today? What?
He probably would respect that. He'd be like, great, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you? No, Pop usually like, we're already going down this road already. But yeah, again, 95% of what the questions the reporters asked are completely asinine. Comment below with, what did we talk about? Training camp fights. Are they normal? Are you afraid for the players? Are you afraid for the chemistry of the team? Does it really mean that there's more problems than there actually is? Or do they turn out to be a Josh Norman, Cam Newton situation like last season?
They fuel the fire.
Francis_Maxwell at Jason Number 91. We'll see you next time.